Good morning, everybody. I would be talking this morning on ways of connecting the unconnected in Africa, and the title of my presentation is The Only Way Forward, which is trying to look at ways in which we can improve connectivity in Africa. I teach telecommunications at the university, and I am also a postdoctoral researcher at the University of York. And this is the content of what I'll be talking about. I will give a brief introduction, current telecommunications and broadband statistics in developing countries, and also look at developed countries, and the only way forward, and I will give a brief conclusion. I would try as much as possible because in as much as I am going to give a presentation, I'm also hoping to learn one or two things from the room. So I will try as much as possible to make it a little bit interactive towards the end. As we all know, access to telecommunication service, it's more of a fundamental requirement. It's more of a basic requirement of every human these days, because it's not just to talk to our neighbors, it encompasses everything. Telecommunication services enables our day-to-day life. It's more of the things that we use in our everyday life. According to the ITU, about 7.385, that's about 48% of the world population were connected to the internet around 2017. And according to these same statistics, about 79.6 of the population of Europeans have been connected to the internet, while in Asia it's about 43.9, and Pacific region it's about 43.7. In the Arab region, the figure is a bit better, it's about 65.9, while in Africa it's about 21.8. As you can see from these statistics, majority of those that are still not connected are actually from Africa. So what I'll be discussing today is how do we connect the remaining percentage, especially in Africa, that are still unconnected. Like I said originally, my research at the moment, I'm working on how to improve broadband connectivity. I'm still going to talk about my research. But during the course of my research, I was trying to think of what is the reason, what are the reasons for Africa not being, for the level of penetration in Africa, how can we improve the level of penetration in Africa? I started looking at other regions to look at what have they done and how have they done some of these things. And I will start from Latin America, which is some Southern American countries. When I looked at most of the Southern American countries, we look at the first issue that I think we have in Africa has to do with lack of electricity. Because before we can have good connectivity, most of our base stations, the telecommunication services, the best way is for them to be connected to the national grid. Unfortunately, so in Latin America, two things are particularly unique in Latin America. The first one is there is a good access to the electrical grid, and also the other thing is education. When I was looking at the statistics, I found out that even in some rural areas, especially in Latin America, they are better connected than in the urban area. And the reason for this is, number one, they have what we call the community networks. Especially if you look at Argentina. Argentina is doing fantastically well based on what we call the community network. If you look at South Asia, the figure in South Asia is better than that of Africa because of one major reason: access to electricity. That is one of the main reasons why you have a better figure in South Asia and also in the Middle East. In Africa, yes, some African countries are doing well, especially, but sub-Saharan Africa is where we have the major problem. And if we look at it, one of the major reasons is because we do not have enough people, enough hands that are educated or that are ready to get involved in connecting those that are not connected at the moment. So in looking at what the problem is, I have tried to look at how can we solve some of this problem. And one of the major things I've been able to come up with is what I'll talk to you about today. Number one is education and technology. We need to educate ourselves. Especially, we need to work together. We need to educate ourselves more, especially in the field of STEMs. We need to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. This is an area whereby we do not have a lot of hands. And in order for us to improve connectivity in Africa, we need to improve in this area. The other area is collaboration. One thing I love at the moment, or one thing I really love, is the multi-stakeholder structure of the internet. It is a structure whereby I think it's one of the good things about the internet, because when you look at the structure of the internet is majorly built, it's an unreliable system that we have tried to make reliable. If you look at all the underlying structures of the internet, it's made up of unreliability. And the good thing about the internet, and that is why it is still at the cost at what it is at the moment, is because we've tried as much as possible to make unreliable elements reliable. And in order for us to get connected in Africa, we also need to do it ourselves. Community network is one of the important things. Apart from community networks, there are so many other areas we need to educate ourselves on. More especially because I have a colleague who is also looking at ways of improving broadband connectivity in Asia. And what we discovered is the difference between Asia and Latin America, especially Southern Asia, is because of lack of education. And one thing we've seen is there is a direct correlation between the educational level and broadband penetration level. Because even where you have access to electrical grid, if the people are not educated, if they do not understand the importance of having the internet, or they do not understand the use of the internet, then they will still not be connected. So what we're trying to do is to bring together stakeholders from the educational sector and also from the telecommunication industry. Bring these two people together to try as much as possible to talk to each other, because that is one area that we need to improve on in order for us to improve connectivity in Africa. We also need to examine various technology, like I said earlier. It is not only community network, it is not only satellite networks, it is not only using the normal terrestrial communication. We have to examine different types of connection. We have to look at the advantages, disadvantages. Is it going to work for us in Africa? Is it not going to work for us? And we also have to develop our capacity. We really need to do this. And this will take us to my current research work. At the moment, what I'm working on is cost-effective telecommunication deployment for Africa, for developing countries, which I'm looking particularly in Africa. And this is where I need you guys to also come in. What we've discovered, or what I have discovered, is that when you look at Universal Access Fund, the way it is being disbursed, especially in most countries in Africa, is I, as a service provider, will just go to government and I will say, you know what, we want to deploy in this rural area. We need X amount of money. And the government of the day will probably look at my face and they'll be like, I like this person's face, or I don't like his face. If they like my face, they'll say, okay, you need this amount of money, we're going to give you the X amount of money you want. Go ahead and deploy. If they don't like my face, they will be like, okay, we don't like your face, we're going to give you something smaller than what you demand for. And the thing is, you have to go and deploy. And what we've discovered is, what is going to happen at the end of the day is, probably most times, what the service provider is going to do is go into these rural areas, deploy, and after 1 year, the guy is going to move out of that area because they are not making profit. So we're trying to come up with a model, which is going to be a cost-effective model that, okay, we'll have a template to tell governments that depending on the number of people living in an area, depending on the kind of technology they want to deploy, depending on so many factors, this is the amount you're supposed to give for this technology per person, per household. Okay? And it's not going to be a one-off investment. It's going to be probably a continuous investment to say, depending on the number of persons that is connected, you're going to have X amount for year 1, X amount for year 2, Z amount for year 3. So trying to look at different technologies. So the aim of the research is to examine different technologies, number one, to say if you're deploying using satellite network, this is the amount that is needed, depending on the number of people that is living in this community. And we hope that this would, first of all, guide government to be able to plan, and also the way the Universal Access Fund is being managed, to change the ways in which the Universal Access Fund is managed, because we really need to connect those that are unconnected in Africa. Development is attached directly to connectivity because it is an essential factor. In conclusion, I would like to say that access to telecommunication service is a basic requirement of life. It's a measure of development, and collaboration is really important. We need to encourage especially the RRIs, to collaborate more with other organizations, Internet Society, the African APC. You have a lot of these organizations who are working hard to actually improve connectivity in Africa. We need to bring these organizations together. We need to collaborate more between ourselves, and we also need to develop capacity. Most importantly, we need to develop our own model. Nobody is going to do this for us. We have to do this ourselves. And the way forward is for us to look at what we have, look at where we're going, look at what is expected of us, and try and look for a way forward. Thank you so much. So majorly, what I want us to talk about, because I know I have 30 minutes and I decided to have a 10 minutes presentation, because I want us to actually discuss, what do you think, especially with the ways in which the Universal Access Fund is being managed in our different countries. What do you think about the Universal Access Fund? I hope we all know what is the Universal Access. I know my aim is, I know there will be people from government here today, and my aim is probably get one or two things from having this discussion.
As you said that Africa has a lack of education, but in the other hand, we still have people have an access to food and water, which is a major problem. So because people still think that...
Excuse me, you have to state your name and your affiliation for the records. Sorry.
So again, my name is Suad Abidi. I'm from Algeria, and I'm a student in the university in the 4th year engineering degree in computer science. So I'll continue what I was saying. I said that Africa has a lack of education, which is very, very clear. And on the other hand, I think that still people have a problem in water access and hunger. So because they still see that technology is just a support, not a factor of development and have a better life and have a better way of development. So I think that Africa has not a lack of ideas. Ideas are just a lot, but we have a lack of engagement and awareness in terms of the importance of technology in our daily life. So what lacks it's actually execution. So we need to highlight the execution of this idea better than saying just idea. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I agree with the points you've been able to make. And I also want to emphasize that there is a direct correlation between development and technology. Your level of development is measured by your level of technology. If you look at what we call the developed world today, it is because of the level of development. And especially with telecommunication, access to telecommunication, it's not just for you to make calls. Your life sometimes might depend on being able to make a call. Sometimes trade, banking, everything now it's dependent on that. So it's a good measure, and we have to, yes, access to food is also one of the basic requirements. But when part of just like having good road is being connected to the internet.
Thank you, sir. And my name is Ish Sukan. I'm from Mauritius. And I would like to add to something that my colleague here as well just said.
Again, name please, because you have to check the records.
I said, okay, I'll say it again. My name is Ish Sukan. I'm from Mauritius. And I would like to add something that my colleague just started here. It's like, yes, in various locations in Africa, we could say that they have a lot of problems. It could be hunger, it could be poverty, it could be the lack of education. Now, you said something that good education has a direct correlation with better broadband. On the better broadband means better internet. On the other hand, we could also say that better internet, a very good access to internet improves education. So it is a vicious circle. Good education gives better broadband, better internet. On the other hand, better internet gives good education. So I believe instead of us like being in that circle, why not organizations like AFRINIC, like other organizations, not help those communities build the community community networks, like you mentioned, instead of leaving it to the wild that, okay, we'll give them education, then someday the community will figure out we can build community internet. Instead of us focusing that, okay, let's help them build a community internet, teach them how to do that. So that's a bit mindful.
Yeah, thank you very much. I do agree with the point you're making that it's like going around the cycle, education, and yes, that is true. And I want to say from my own experience also, one thing I've learned is why I really feel we need to do it ourselves. A few months back, I was taking a course on using mobile it was a GSMA course, leveraging mobile as a tool for sustainable development, something like that. And one of the modules I was taking was the use of mobile money. And when I was looking at mobile money, I was trying to, because I'm from Nigeria, and I was trying to conceptualize why mobile money is a big deal when you look at in Tanzania, in Kenya, why it's really a success. And I couldn't understand it. And I was just thinking, mobile money is not a big deal in Nigeria. Nobody uses mobile money. And I was in Kigali a few weeks back, and I saw this mobile money kiosk, and I went there and I was asked, what is your business model? How does it work? And they were able to explain to me that the reason why mobile money is successful in those countries is because they don't have enough banks. In Nigeria, we don't have that problem. There are banks probably every 20, 30 kilometers. You find a bank. If you don't find a bank, you find an ATM machine. So the business model, there is no business model for mobile money, unlike in those countries whereby it is difficult. And the other thing again is, in Nigeria today, there is incentive for putting your money in banks. If I put my money in banks, I get interest. Unlike in some other African countries, when you put your money in banks, you do not get interest. You actually pay for those services. So if we do not understand what is the local requirement, and that was at that point, that was when I was able to understand why mobile money is really a big deal in those countries, and it's never going to be, or for now, it's not going to be what we need in Nigeria. And that is the main reason why I think education is important. Because if you have education without having the local knowledge, okay, you might be building something that is never required. I will also tell you a story somebody told me a while ago. They said they were building, I hope, yeah. They said they were building a well. They were building boreholes around some communities. And they went to this community they were like, oh, you don't have potable water, we're going to give you a borehole. And they decided to dig a borehole because in that community, a lot of them walk about 50, 20, 30 kilometers to go and get water. And the community is a very poor community, whereby you have the father, the mother, everybody living in one bedroom apartment. And when they sank this borehole, they discovered that 1 year after, this borehole is not being used. Most of the community, most of the children still walk the 20 kilometers to go and fetch water. And they went back to the community and they asked them, why are you not using the borehole? And the parents explained to them, we all live in one bedroom apartment, the father, the mother. The period whereby the children actually go to the stream to fetch water, that is the period the father and the mother have time for each other. So the model is, if you are actually giving us this borehole, then the father and the mother will not have time to have private conversation with each other. So they are not using the borehole, even though it is useful to them, but in a way, it is really not useful to them because they want the children to go as far as possible so that they will have enough time for each other. So we need to understand the local community, and that is why I also said community network is a way forward.
With your hand. Oh, Doctor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. So we are going to move